Welcome into another edition of the San Francisco 49ers Report right here on the Chat Sports Network. I'm Chase Sr. Coming up on today's show, we're going to chop it up with the faithful. It's a bye week for the Niners, but our coverage doesn't stop because there are no days off, so we're going to open up the floor and take some questions from some of our loyal viewers, real ones, and subscribers. A reminder, you know what I need you to do? Go on down there. You see it? Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. We are approaching 150,000 subscribers. This is the largest Niners show on YouTube in the entire world, so be a part of the movement. And when you do hit that sub button, you can be a part of our content as well. For instance, Nick Dolfer, a $50 super chat. Trade deadline, by the way, is coming up on Tuesday. It would be great if the 49ers pick up another edge rusher opposite of Nick Bosa. And I agree that pass rush and stopping the run, two of the biggest needs for this Niners team. And imagine if Nick Bosa or Leonard Floyd were to go down, the Niners would be handicapped severely with trying to generate pressure on the quarterback. Nick Bosa is having an incredible year. And last year, he put up some really good numbers, but you could tell he got off to a slow start after he didn't partake in any preseason games or in training camp, and he didn't sign that lofty contract extension, making him the highest paid defender in the history of football until the Wednesday before the season opener. And so he was slow to get going, but then middle to latter portion of the year, he really started to turn it on. He was really good in the playoffs, and he said this offseason, I'm in the best shape that I've been in a while. Certainly better than last year. We're seeing that. He leads the NFL in pressures according to Pro Football Focus, but if he can get another legitimate player opposite of him who can be highly productive, because Leonard Floyd has been a little bit disappointing, it helps him out, makes this Niners team much better. I'm interested to see what the Niners do. 4-4. John Lynch has said, if there's a player out there that we like, we'll think about getting them. He's made a lot of moves recently. 2019, Emmanuel Sanders. 2020, Jordan Willis. 2021, Charles Omenihu. 2022, Christian McCaffrey. 2023, Chase Young. But is there a player out there who they think can move the needle for this ball club? Forrest Winston, a $10 super chat. Go get Max Crosby is what he meant to say. Bosa needs some help, and they could afford him. Look, I love Max Crosby. I think that he is right up there with Nick Bosa among some of the best pass rushers in the game. Bosa and Crosby are different players. Like when you look at Bosa, he looks as though he was built in a lab, but they play similarly, right? Hustle, loving the craft, technique, pass rushing moves. And so Max Crosby isn't like the athlete that Bosa is, but they're just as effective in getting after the quarterback because of their relentless pursuit and their love for the game of football. And Max Crosby is actually a pretty affordable player for what he gives his defense. Nick Bosa is making $34 million per year, average annual value. Max Crosby is in the mid-20s. So that's actually a pretty good bargain, but he's the face of the Raiders, and I don't think the Raiders move off of him. Now, if I were running the Raiders, would I entertain it? They're not going anywhere with Max Crosby. It's not really going to help you become a winning team. I would think about trading him, getting a bunch of assets back, because I think that you can get 2 1s and just tearing it down and rebuilding. But again, the Raiders aren't smart. They're not going to do that. Joe Squared, $5 super chat. Do you think the Niners need an offensive coordinator just to give different looks with Kyle Shanahan's offense? During our live show, I touched on that a little bit, but for those of you obviously not watching the live show when this video comes out, think about San Francisco's offense, right? Last year, they were the number 1 overall offense in the NFL. Analytically, they were top 5 in pretty much everything. They were number 1 in red zone scoring percentage. They were an incredible unit. This year, they are still 8th in points per game despite their red zone struggles. They're 2nd in yards per game at 412. 9th in points per play. 2nd in yards per play. 6th on third downs. What's held them back? 25th in the red zone. Fourth down conversion rate, 42.8%. That's 25th, but they don't face a lot of fourth downs. And touchdowns per game, 2.6. If they can figure out their red zone problems, they revert back to what they did last year. And so last year, excellent offense. This year, flashes of a good offense. They've been inefficient in the red zone. So I don't really think that Kyle Shanahan needs an offensive coordinator. This is also the time of the year where he starts to make some really key and monumental adjustments, and hopefully he can do that. But still, the jury is out with how he fares against some of the top defensive minds. There's no doubt about that. Brian Flores, Steve Spagnuolo, Jim Schwartz. I do think that maybe at times he misses the creativity of Mike McDaniel. Will Mike McDaniel get canned by Miami? Could he come back to San Francisco? We'll certainly see. I think he would want to go somewhere where he can call plays, though. Kyle Shanahan's going to continue to call plays. Gumpwolf, what do you think of defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence? I think that Dexter Lawrence is one of the top overall players in the National Football League. Completely dominant, building block, and a cornerstone for that New York Giants team. And again, he's not just one of the best defensive players in the NFL. He's one of the best overall players in the National Football League. He has 9 sacks playing nose tackle. He has to face a lot of double teams, and he is legitimately putting together a Defensive Player of the Year type of season. If the Giants were better, he would get more recognition. He's in his age 28 season. The last 2 years, he's been a Pro Bowler and a second-team All-Pro. He was 9th in Defensive Player of the Year voting last year, and now this year, he's having a career year. Like 9 sacks from nose tackle, where you're lined up over the center. There aren't a lot of them anymore, and you're getting double-teamed a lot. He's breaking through those double teams. But because of how great he is, I don't think the Giants will trade him away, and it would cost a lot for San Francisco to bring him in. Would I love it? No doubt about it. I just don't think it's realistic. King Javier, need to get a new wide receiver. If the Niners make a trade for a wide receiver, I don't think it's going to be for a star-level player. I think it will be a Kendrick Bourne type of player or a Cortland Sutton type of player. I think Bourne is more realistic as compared to a player like Sutton because he's the best wide receiver on a Broncos team with a rookie quarterback who is 5-3 as a starter, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games. And so for that reason, I don't think the Broncos trade him away. Sutton also has 1 more year left on his contract after this year. And I kind of like the Niners receiving core. They could still get by with Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Jawan Jennings, Chris Conley, Ronnie Bell. Like, that's a good enough unit. And because they paid all this money to Ayuk, I don't think they bring in a star-level player. There was some chatter that Kyle Shanahan was a big fan of Deontay Johnson. Can't do that any longer. He got traded to the Baltimore Ravens. So I think if they make a move, it's more defense over offense. Mr. Black Ice, I agree on not working Christian McCaffrey like crazy. We have good depth with our running backs. It will tire out the defenses left and right. Use our guys as far as trades, get the right player or players at the right price. So, Mr. Black Ice, appreciate your thoughts. I did a video on not overusing Christian McCaffrey as part of my bye week changes and the moves that the Niners need to make coming out of the bye. I did a YouTube short on it. And here's my thoughts, right? Christian McCaffrey is coming off bilateral Achilles tendonitis. Tough injury to come back from. Who's to say he's going to be the same guy? Who's to say that he can manage the same workload? Even if he can, manage his workload so that he can be a weapon as you near the playoffs. You also have him under contract through 2027. You gave him guaranteed money. You increased his average annual value. And so don't run him into the ground. You also have talented backs on this team. I want to continue to see Jordan Mason. I want to continue to see Isaac Guerendo. And so when you mix in those running backs, you keep McCaffrey fresh, but also you bring some really fascinating skill sets to this Niners offense. I thought what Steve Young said this week was very interesting. He wants to see Kyle Shanahan get creative, innovative, and hop in his bag and use all 3 players on the field at the same time. Now, he said that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but his point was give the defense new looks and include McCaffrey, Guerendo, Mason. Because if you have all those players motioning and you can still have 2 wide receivers on the field and or a tight end, defenses are like, what the hell's happening? Who's getting the ball? And I agree, Mr. Black Ice. Use our guys. And as far as the trade, has to come at the right price. Thunderbolt. Do you think that we can beat the Buccaneers? I do. Tampa Bay not having Mike Evans, Chris Godwin out for the year makes that offense a lot more easier to defend. I do think that Baker Mayfield, since the midway point of last year, had been playing like a top 10 quarterback with those weapons at his disposal. They do have a really good defense. Kyle Shanahan will be matched up against another really good defensive mind in Todd Bowles, who gets aggressive. He will play man. He will blitz. And Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan have to show they can beat those type of upper echelon defensive coordinators. Dan Nelson, why not Chase Young? Why not Chase Young? I was a fan of the trade last year because the Niners needed pass rush help. Same story this year. And Chase Young, I'm always willing to take chances on players with pedigree, with talent, who have produced before. But then we saw that Chase Young's effort was really up and down, really inconsistent, and he doesn't fit the Niners culture. The Niners want football players who love football, who will play like Nick Bosa, like Fred Warner, like Diamador Lenore, and Dre Greenlaw, who embody the Niners culture, playing like dogs, loving the craft, loving the grind. I don't think Chase Young really loves it. I think that he banks a little bit too much on his athleticism. I think the Niners saw that. That's why they let him walk. He only signed a one-year deal with New Orleans. If the Niners wanted truly to bring him back, they could have. And I don't think that San Francisco is going to revisit this. As for how Chase Young is faring this year, let me take a look at his numbers real quick. Look, and this is what's frustrating. He's 6'5", 265. Like Bosa, built in a lab, a freak athlete. 7.5 sacks year one. Gets hurt, 1.5 sacks. 9 games year two. 3 games played year 3. Barely played. Comes back in 2023. A total of 7.5 sacks. Pretty good. This year for New Orleans, 2 sacks on a pretty damn good defense. He should be able to dominate and take over games. He is in his age 26 season, so he's still young, but I just don't like the motor. Be sure to hit that subscribe button here on the Niners Report. I always love chopping it up with everybody. I want you to be a part of the show. Our mailbags are a way to do that.